Hello everyone, it's been a while since I've recorded a new video. So my last upload I just put up a few days ago was from a few weeks back, but here I am again bringing out some new content and some more movie reviews. Now before I get on to this movie review tonight, I want to let everyone know that I do have a Patreon account for this channel, MykeCheck'd Productions, and also for the RDW Red Dust Wrestling account that I also have on YouTube. I'm still working on getting all the videos uploaded on the RDW Red Dust Wrestling Patreon account, but I will have links to both of those in the description below and somewhere in this video, more so like on that corner there, on the viewing screen on your computer or phone or laptop or gaming console, however you're watching this video. Just get on there, sign up, support your local movie reviewers / other random content that I put out. But that's besides the point right now. Be sure to sign up for that. But tonight I have a movie review for you guys, a MykeCheck'd Productions MykeCheck'd review. The movie that I'll be discussing right now is the 2020, I guess, sequel-ish of The Grudge. I will say right now, if there are some clips that I have edited in here where you do see me looking at my phone quite a bit, it's because my notes are on my phone, and sometimes, I mean, this isn't going to be 100% like, I guess, professional or whatever, because I'm still trying to learn the ropes or whatever, so give me crap for that, it's whatever. Onward to the movie, The Grudge 2020. Now, before I actually get into my notes, before I went into this film, I've actually only seen 2 of the Grudge movies. I've seen the first Japanese Grudge, Ju-On, that was released back in 1999, I think. I'll have to double check, or you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section below. And I've also seen the first of the original trilogy of the American rendition of The Grudge. Now, I have read up the story on the American sequels and a little bit more on the Japanese ones, so I have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to the Grudge storyline, but I haven't seen all of the movies. But going into the new film, the 2020 Grudge, I am going into it having the knowledge of the sequels from the American franchise in my head. I just haven't directly seen The Grudge 2 or The Grudge 3. If there's anything that I do miss, or there's pieces missing, I guess, or whatnot, if I do happen to mention something from those other movies, again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, or you can just tell me to go watch the movies, because I do need to go watch them, even though they slowly get a little bad over time, but that's usually what happens to horror movies that get sequels and get watered down by Hollywood. I'm sorry, I have some shots fired at Hollywood. Now, moving on to The Grudge 2020, I have some cons and I have some pros. I'm gonna go with the cons first, because the cons don't really outweigh the pros in this. I know a lot of people that reviewed this film didn't really enjoy it, but for me, to be honest, I actually watched this film slightly intoxicated, but that's besides the point. I actually thought this film wasn't too bad. There's a couple things here and there, like I'm about to get into with cons, that I didn't really enjoy too much. One of the cons in this film is that it does have a lot of jump scares in it, like your typical American horror film nowadays, and even going back to the 2010s and maybe the late 2000s. I just feel like that there was too many jump scares and a lot of false jump scares, and it just, like, when you're like a horror fan like me, or like anyone else who's seen a lot of horror movies, you kind of get to know when it's gonna happen because of like music cues and just the way the camera is like showing the scene and whatnot. It's just like, it gets kind of repetitive and a little, I guess you can say boring. I mean, I wouldn't say boring, but you're kind of just sitting there just like, oh, okay. I mean, rarely a jump scare like ever like gets me when it comes to horror movies. I mean, this one obviously didn't really get me at all, because I kind of just sat through it and watched it because I knew when each one was going to happen. That, and that's another con I forgot to put down, was the movie trailer kind of revealed a little too much. I mean, that's also what happens with some horror movies, or just movies in general. But I mean, just going into it, trying to like learn the story and everything, I may have also spoiled myself a little bit when it came to this movie, learning that it was kind of a sequel with the original 3 American Grudge movies. I mean, I don't remember exactly which part was pieced with which. I'll have to like go back and put it together because this movie goes back and forth in like years and everything. So it's definitely like putting a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle together, and it takes weeks to do that, and I'll probably have to write everything down just to understand everything. There was actually one scene that I thought was really dumb when it comes to this movie, and I'm not the only one that actually pointed it out. There's another YouTuber I do follow. His name is Cody Leach. I'll put his YouTube account down below in the description box. Go follow him. He's actually a really good movie reviewer. Cody Leach, keep up the good work. It's the closet scene with the realtor where he's hiding from the ghosts and his phone goes off and he doesn't have the brain to like sit there and turn on silent. He just sits there and kind of just looks at it, answers it, and he's like, hello, or some random shit like that, and then boom, he gets possessed or killed or whatever. Just that whole scene was just done very stupidly, I would think. And like I said, Cody Leach made that point out too when I watched his review. It's just, to me, it kind of felt like this movie may have done some reshoots for sure. I'm not 100% sure if it did. I never really like looked in too much into the back story of like the filming of this. I mean, I was just excited because I actually like Japanese horror films, and I always hope to God that American renditions of Japanese horror films don't get screwed up. This one, it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. But anyways, enough about the cons. We'll start talking about the pros. Like I said before, how it ties into the American films from years ago. Like I said, this is like a secret sequel to the original trilogy. Again, I'd have to like sit there and pinpoint where it's tying into which film, but it does tie in with the original trilogy, which I find is actually pretty cool, and it kind of does help with the storytelling. The main thing that has this movie going for me is the storytelling and how well that they tried to do it while trying to tie in the loosely weirdly connected storyline in the American trilogy. But it did its job, and it actually kept me at the, not really the edge of my seat, but it kept me hooked throughout the entire film for the most part, minus the fact that I was intoxicated. But again, I guess I like to watch movies more intently when I'm intoxicated instead of just being on my phone the entire time. The effects, I would say, some people say the effects weren't that great. Some people say they're absolute trash. I would say the effects are actually decent when it came to this film. Like, I've seen far worse effects than the ones in this movie. But like I said, they weren't great, but they were decent. Like, I was able to like kind of like enjoy it without being like, oh my god, that looks like a shitty CGI thing there. I mean, it gave enough vibes for me to get kind of creeped out. Or kind of creeped out with it, because the whole concept of The Grudge is a little creepy. But it wasn't bad for me. It wasn't bad enough for me to get put off by it. So the effects were decent in my opinion, because I have seen far worse effects, and I also watch a lot of slasher films which have very awful effects. Nothing in the 80s, I don't dog on the 80s slasher films. Those are honestly probably the best slasher horror films when it comes to effects like that, more like the newer ones, but I'm getting off track here. I also enjoyed the fact that it went with a non-linear story. Like I said before, it was jumping from year to year. It would go from like 1990 something to like mid 2000 and then back to like a later year or an earlier year, like in the 1980s. It was non-linear, and it was just jumping around, and I enjoy movies that do that. I mean, it could get confusing for most other moviegoers, but for me, it actually makes me want to pay more attention to the movie. I mean, it could get confusing, but for me, like I said just a second ago, it makes me want to think. It makes me want to actually try to piece the story together, and I was able to piece together a pretty average story for the most part. Like I said, it wasn't like a compelling 6-paragraph or 6-page essay that was deemed with awards and whatnot, but it was enough to like keep me hooked, and it was honestly not that bad. Another thing that I really liked about this movie is that it did a better, I know this is kind of a loose way to put it, and I think it did a better job at explaining how the curse got to America, instead of like, oh well, it just, here it is. I mean, of course, like, I mean, it did explain it in the original trilogy, the American trilogy, how the curse got to America, but I feel like this one did a little bit better. It kind of like explained how it went from like one house to another, because it was mainly more focused in the house in America and how the curse got stuck there. Because this one, it wasn't the original, I guess you can say it wasn't the original ghosts or demons or paranormal, yeah, just entities, ghosts or whatever. I'm just gonna stick with ghosts. It wasn't the original ghosts from like Japan. It was the family, or more like the girl who was taking care of the Japanese family, like the original maid. She got cursed by that Japanese family. She brought it home, and the curse killed her, and then her house got pretty much cursed by her family, like her husband, herself, and their kid, which turned out to be a daughter in this rendition. So it's just, it kind of freshens up the story a bit, knowing that it doesn't just revolve around just the same three ghosts from the Japan from the Japan house in the original curse in the original story. It pretty much shows that if it latches onto somebody else, it could transfer to another one, creating a new like curse or I guess virus to spread around in the U.S. I really like that. Also, I also forgot to mention that I guess The Grudge, or the writers of The Grudge, or Ju-on or whatever, made a Netflix series to kind of explain the story a little bit more, and people have been saying that that's actually been breathing more life into the Ju-on Grudge series. So I need to find some time and actually watch it and add it to my I guess thoughts to the whole Grudge franchise and the Grudge series, I guess with this. But overall, from what my notes say here, it was a pretty good movie. It had its jump scares, probably too many for my liking, but its non-linear storytelling was what wrapped me into the movie, and how the curse got to America was pretty good. Acting was good to subpar, and it gave you tense scenes where you think something is going to happen, but it pushes a little further to catch you off guard. Like, yeah, there were too many jump scares, I would say, and the acting was good to subpar, but I mean, I did forget to mention that there were a couple scenes, for me, again, I was intoxicated, so it amplified kind of like the feel of the movie, that made the scenes a little bit more tense. It kind of made you want to like go, oh yeah, what's going to happen here? Is the ghost going to get him? Blah, 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 blah. But this is just my opinion. I should probably watch this movie again when I'm sober, but I mean, I had a good time watching this movie. I didn't think it was absolute trash. I'm not saying it's like the best movie of the year, but I've seen a lot of horror movies. I've seen a lot of bad horror movies, and this is not one of those bad ones. It's not fantastic, it's not great, it's good, but it's also not horrible or bad. My rating for it may not coincide with my actual thoughts of the film, but my rating for it will have to be like a 6.8 out of 10. That's almost pretty much like a failing grade, I guess people would say. But again, I'll be honest, it doesn't really take much for me to get into or be pleased with a movie. And that's why I like a lot of like subpar to good movies, especially when it comes to horror. I don't really get turned off from horror movies unless like the story absolutely fucking sucks or the ending just blows. This one, it actually, I guess you can say it kind of left at a cliffhanger, even though you know what happened. Even though you don't really see what happens, but you just know what happens. And I won't really get into the spoilers for the ending for that, even though I may have spoiled a couple things here and there for the story. By the way, I'll tag it in the title, but this has spoilers in it, so you've been forewarned. A little late for me now, but you'll have the warning in the title. But yeah, I would say 6.8 out of 10. Not a good grade for a movie, but again, like I said, it doesn't take much for me to get into or enjoy a movie, and I wouldn't really recommend this for a lot of people. I mean, if you're like an avid horror fan who like is just into horror movies, this one is probably not for you. But if you're kind of more like of a casual, like Halloween, more like a casual horror fan, you're not really like super into them, but you like can enjoy the occasional horror movie here and there, and you just kind of want to get the scares. Maybe a viewing once or twice of this film isn't too bad. Like, I mean, I'm not gonna go jump and watch this film again probably within the next day or two. But I mean, if I happen to want to like watch it or get into like a mood or get into like the Ju-on or Grudge like marathon, I'll sit down and watch it again. Even though if I go into the whole marathon with Ju-on and the Grudge, I have to watch that crossover with the Ring and Grudge, or Ringu Ju-on crossover that Japan did. And I haven't heard good things about that, but we will get to that when I actually get to it. But this is MykeCheck'd 95, another MykeCheck'd production with another MykeCheck'd review. That is my thoughts on the 2020 Grudge. What are your thoughts on the 2020 Grudge? And do you agree with my opinion about this film? Is this film really not for you? Do you actually absolutely love this movie? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments down below. And I'll see you next time with another MykeCheck'd review.